or you move backwards. It's the same with a company, it's the same with a consumer product, and it's the same with a country. And at the moment, this country is broken because this government, this feeble leadership, won't actually drive things forward and get stuff done because it's all a bit too difficult. That's my first rant of the hour. But that's because my next guest is ready, Kevin Lister, spokesman for the Bad Law Project, about another area where the government's just kicked a difficult, sensitive issue down the road, about the guidance being given on the trans issue and transitioning to head teachers and teachers in schools. Back in the spring, Rishi Sunak said when Miriam Kate stood up in the House of Commons and highlighted some of the appalling nonsense and garbage that was being taught in schools, the Prime Minister promised an urgent review. Well, his definition of urgent turned out to be sort of later this year, but now it seems it's all being kicked down the road even further. Oh, it's just unbelievable, this stuff. It's not very difficult. Kevin, a very good afternoon. Thanks for joining me. I'm sorry, this actually winds me up quite bad. And I just think that I'm hearing some shocking things coming out of schools. What's your view on this latest indication that the government that promised some guidance by the end of the summer term, they've now bottled it?
It is, as you say, it is absolutely extraordinary that the government can't get its act together on this. And I think, just putting into context what you've been saying there, Richard, that this is a serious issue. This is tearing apart young lives. It's tearing apart families. We have teachers leaving the profession left, right and centre. Teachers like me who've been fired and have been referred as a safeguarding liability now. It is almost beyond belief that this can be happening this time, at this point in our human development. So, here we are in the year 2023, and we're being told to push forward an ideology in schools that has no basis in science, nothing at all. It's purely an ideological construct that's driven forward by a bunch of ideologists with no interest for the safety and preservation of young people. It is extraordinary that it's been allowed to get to this point.
So what appears to be happening is that the government once again is frankly, in my view, bottling a real sense of leadership. Apparently the Attorney General, one Victoria Prentice, says the government would have to change the law in order to have a ban on so-called social transition.
This is just total prevarication.
Exactly.
Total prevarication. All the law is there at the moment. The Education Act is clear. Section 406 prohibits political indoctrination in schools. So teachers socially transitioning children or being subjected to compelled speech of children is political indoctrination. That is already illegal in schools. The Children's Act protects children. The opening statement of the Children's Act is that the interests of the child are of the paramount concern of the courts, not the interests of the transgender community. The Equalities Act has a specific provision for what schools should do. And part of that is not to allow and to enforce the social transitioning of children. There is nothing at all in law that supports what is going on at the moment. And what really needs to be happening, rather than debating the pros and cons of more guidance, when there is already plenty of guidance to say that we should not be doing what is being done, what we need to be doing now is testing the law in court, and that needs to be the first port of call. So I will be taking my case to the Employment Tribunal in March next year, and the Bad Law Project is also looking at suing the Department for Education for its negligence in allowing this, and not only allowing this, but facilitating this into the schools. So the laws are there, and what we need to do now, the first course of action, is to start the the process of testing those laws in courts and have the intent to test those laws.
Yeah, because the reality is, in my view, and I think the vast majority of people in this country, particularly parents and grandparents, I think people view this as a fundamental issue of safeguarding.
Right.
And that if you cause this anxiety and confusion and distress amongst children, it is a breach of safeguarding.
You're absolutely right, and that's why this is just unbelievable to understand. What we've had, when you cast your eyes back over what's happened in safeguarding over the last 15 years, we had the Ian Huntley murders, where he killed Jessica Chapman and Holly Wells. As a consequence, we introduced the DBS, the enhanced safeguarding policy. And what's happened now is we're just throwing all that out the window. Now, anyone can come into school, any activist teacher, any pervert, any paedophile can come into school under the transgender support banners and transgender policies that schools have got. And they can inflict the most egregious harm on the most vulnerable young people. And they will be held and given special privilege to do so.
Exactly.
Our safeguarding policy is there. We already have safeguarding guidance, and it's completely ignored.
Because we've got a situation where you'd like to think that heads might be able to do this, but of course the heads of all schools are terrified that someone might sue them if they try and show the leadership that should be shown, frankly, from the top of government. And it doesn't matter what school. I'm hearing that actually some of the schools that are sort of, in a sense, worse to this are some of the most expensive schools in the country, including one, and I'm going to name them actually, St Paul's School for Girls in West London. I'm told that they're allowing pupils to socially transition, to change their pronouns without parents' knowledge or consent, and that parents are steaming mad about this when they find out about it. Now, we did contact, before this show, at the back end of the week, St Paul's School for Girls to ask for comment, and there was no reply coming forth. And they're very welcome to come on any show on Talk TV to discuss this. But I challenge all of these schools. I think it's an absolute outrage, Kevin. And the government's if the government showed this leadership and said to all heads, none of this stuff is allowed, and that you have to deal with pupils according to their biological sex, it's game over, done and dusted, job sorted, gone away.
Correct, yeah. But what's worse is that guidance is already in place. There was guidance in 2019, 2020, I think it was, that said specifically that a school should not encourage the transgender or the gender transition of a child without parental consent. That guidance is already there. It is unbelievable. The Attorney Generals, when Suella Braverman was the Attorney General, also gave guidance to schools. That was ignored. So what's basically happening is we're just ignoring the existing guidance and completely ignoring the laws. And the kind of situation that you've just described, where the heads are frightened of being sued, well, they are going to be sued. Because we are looking to sue the Department for Education and then prospective schools thereafter as well for violation of safeguarding.
Here's the thing, though, Kevin, and all power to your elbow. Unbelievably, apparently the reason that Sunak is bottling this issue is there are some Tory MPs, or a significant number, who actually want to make it easier for pupils to transition in schools. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't, no. And those MPs, they need to be named. I don't know which ones, which Tory MPs are trying to push. I can have a go at guessing, but we need to be absolutely clear. And these people's names need to be in the public domain, and that's why we have free speech, and likewise in the other parties as well. I mean, this whole thing. We need to be really careful that we understand where this whole thing came from. This whole thing came from the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems got £1.5 million over 2014-2015 from Ferring Pharmaceuticals, who manufacture puberty blockers and testosterone. They helped drive this into the Department for Education and into the schools. The Labour Party then picked it up because they wanted some inclusive policy, wanted to try and beat the Lib Dems, and then the Conservatives then got frightened to take them on. Yeah, this is a money-making exercise by the drug companies, and it's been driven by basically being driven by the Lib Dems. It's the money's there, the audit trail is completely there.
We know, Kevin, that Sir Ed Davey doesn't know what a woman is. It's completely unbelievable.
He might not know what a woman is, but he does know what £1.5 million is.
I suspect he does. Kevin Lister, thank you so much indeed for your thoughts on there. Lots of messages coming in. One from Natasha says, safeguarding of children, Richard, went out of the window when fully grown males who claim they're migrants. This is absolutely the case. Illegal migrants across China who claimed they were children were put into school classrooms and sat next to the pupils. I mean, some of this stuff, it's just extraordinary. That was Kevin Lister from the Bad Law Project. He is looking at pursuing his claim and also challenging the Department of Education. Absolutely extraordinary.